Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. This is the traffic calming meeting for Hopedale Drive. We are here at Christ Lutheran Church in person, but this meeting is also being hosted virtually on WebEx. It is being recorded and will be posted to YouTube so that anyone who wasn't able to attend tonight will be able to view the presentation as well. My name is David Greaves. I work for Kimley-Horn. We're here representing NDOT as the design engineers. Also with me is George Ryad. George.
Hi, welcome.
Excellent. And then this is January 1st, 2024 here at 6:30 p.m.
Also present.
Oh, sorry, please, by all means.
Bob Nash, I want to welcome everybody that didn't come. Hopefully we'll see you later. And I want to shout out to Pastor Rodman and the church here for allowing us to meet.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you for being here. Start out, what is traffic calming? We focus on residential streets, so big collectors, Nolensville Pike. That's not kind of the road we focus on. Really, we're wanting to slow down speeds on streets where people live. The traffic calming program focuses on physical solutions more so than things like signs, rules, stuff like that. Generally, to pursue a higher effectiveness in slowing speeds. And we generally like to focus on longer lengths of road than shorter ones. So less so like one block and more like a corridor of sorts. Traffic calming has 3 E's. Those are education, enforcement, and engineering. Education is sort of what we're doing here tonight, kind of talking about the program. What are we here to do? Why? How? Enforcement, that is more the Metro Nashville Police Department, less so NDOT. They love to be everywhere and make sure people are driving safely, but they're just stretched very thin and can't be everywhere at once. So NDOT is here with a more kind of design-based solution to encourage slower speeds other ways. This is all in pursuit of safety and Vision Zero more specifically. For anyone who doesn't know, Vision Zero is imagining that we can have 0 pedestrian fatalities, 0 roadway fatalities for folks driving. Really just nobody dying on our public roads is the goal there. The infographic below is sort of a kind of quick way to communicate why driving slower is important for that goal. So those who are struck by vehicles going 25 miles an hour have roughly an 89% chance of surviving. And as those speeds go up, that probability of survival does unfortunately go way down. So this program is a part of this this goal that NDOT has. There are certainly other programs, other design levers that they'll pull, but the traffic calming program really is just about safety and making sure that everyone in our city, is able to live and go home at night. This is a really popular program. So currently we have about 500 applications on file. That's folks who have asked Nashville for traffic calming and are ultimately in the queue and being, analyzed. Hopedale is part of the selection that happened with 25, but for this period of time, we upped that by 60. So there's a lot of traffic calming being done right now. It's very exciting, but ultimately that's a small fraction of the streets that Hopedale is one of the few that was selected. It's kind of young and unlucky because that means that we're experiencing speed and traffic on your street, which obviously isn't ideal. So there's a lot of things that the traffic calming program can do, but even more that really aren't part of this program. So we like to plug Hub Nashville as a resource or things outside of the program that won't happen with this project, but can be requested, through Hub. That number is 311 if you want to call. The website is hub.Nashville.gov. My favorite way to use it is the app. You can have it installed on your phone and use it to request all kinds of things. Any like broken sidewalks, trees down the road, reporting. So it's really just kind of a catch-all way to communicate with the city. So how was Hopedale chosen? Basically, when a street applies, we collect a lot of data, do analysis. A lot of that is how fast are people driving, and then a smaller piece of the pie is how many people are driving. Those are by far the biggest two factors that we weigh in when we give these street scores. And the reason for that is those are kind of the two main things that create the danger that people experience on roadways. Also include vulnerable user injuries to fatality. So we did see there was a pedestrian or cyclist that got hit in the past. That'll contribute to a street getting a higher score just because it is like clear evidence of a problem. And then trip destinations, non-driver accommodations, that's basically asking like, are there sidewalks here? Like, do you have a place to walk if that's what you're doing? Are there schools nearby? And we sort of like as well just to sort of bring the context of a street into the equation here. So Hopedale, the section from Wallace Road to Haywood Lane, is the project we're talking about. The 85th percentile speed is 35 miles an hour. It's not terrible relative to some of the work streets in the program right now. The volume is pretty high. That's over 2,000 vehicles a day is quite substantial for. And then a pretty normal street width, 24 feet. That's enough for 2 lanes, but not incredibly tight, not incredibly wide. Here's a little map of Hopedale. The section is highlighted. This is actually a screenshot from NDOT's traffic calming tracker. So you'll see some purple lines, some green lines, some blue lines. The green lines are all of those that have applied and been selected. So basically, we're working on it. Purple ones have applied but have not yet been selected. And then blue is where traffic calming has already been installed. So one thing that sticks out to me looking at this map is to the east of us, we actually have quite a bit of traffic calming project installations in already. And Hopedale is sort of one that runs parallel to those. So it's possible that some of the volume we're seeing is maybe in response to people not wanting to drive on Nolensville, perhaps. So cut through traffic is something that we do see as sort of a cause for getting higher up in the list of streets that need attention. We're going to talk about what the traffic calming program considers when we design a street. Biggest thing we focus on are speed cushions. Essentially, these are devices that are not too big. They're not speed bumps. They're a little bit longer than that. But basically, they're modular items that get bolted down onto the road to sort of act like a high speed bump of sorts. To elaborate on the distinction, speed bumps are more like in parking lots, and their target speed is like 5 to 10 miles an hour. Speed cushions are stretched out so that it's the target speed is more the 25 mile an hour area. We certainly don't want people slowing way down to a crawl on streets. We just want to suggest that drivers go a speed that's a little safer than what you're experiencing today. They're only about 3 inches high. That comes as a surprise to some folks. They're 6 feet wide. That's a really deliberate number. Essentially, the middle ground that's being pursued is we want them to be wide enough for most cars to have to interact with them as they're driving through. But emergency vehicles, fire trucks, ambulances that tend to have a little bit wider wheelbases, we like to leave those gaps for them to sort of get their tires on either side and not have to slow down as much. And that sort of is the goal there. We don't want to inhibit any emergency responses by doing these, but we want to try to slow most people down as they're using the road. Very similar to speed cushions or speed tables. The only difference here really is that they're a little bit longer. They stretch further across the road. So they're more appropriate for kind of like collector style roads that are seeing a lot more traffic. Or at least ones that we hope will accommodate more traffic. The speed cushions are more the residential kind of local road sort of device that we lean on. How do we know these work? There's been plenty of national studies about these that suggest that these have successful results. In addition to those, NDOT has selected a few of their own projects in Nashville to study. And that's the data that we're seeing here. So the columns on the left there are the before. Those are speeds 31, 37, going down to 22, 25 after the installations. And those were results NDOT was really happy to see. Basically what we're seeing there is we're taking speeds that are a little more fast than they're wanting to see and bringing them down to a more appropriate level. The next few slides are sort of the niche tools used in certain situations, but not on every street. So a radar feedback sign. We usually pull this out when we have hills that prevent the use of speed cushions. So speed cushions have certain constraints on like where they can be installed. We don't put them on sharp curves. We don't put them on steep hills. Partially for safety and partially because the cushions don't last as long when we do that. And the last thing we want is one of these things like breaking and just being loose in the road. That does very little good. We can also do pavement narrowing. So if a street's really wide, it feels pretty comfortable to drive fairly fast. You know, it feels a little more like an interstate or kind of a few lane road. If we add edge lines to a road, it doesn't physically narrow the space you're able to drive on, but it does sort of psychologically constrain the area that you're navigating. And research has shown that actually does tend to slow people down a little bit. It's not as effective as speed cushions. We certainly don't rely on only this on the projects that we do, but it is something that can sort of be part of a mix of measures that we employ. Even more niche than that, we have bulb outs and chicanes. So a bulb out is intended to take an intersection that is very large and shrink it down to a more appropriate size. So intersections that are really large have wide turning radii, and the wider a turning radius is, the faster someone can go while still making that turn. That's not always a bad thing. Interstate ramps have a larger road that'll have a pretty large turning radius. But on streets where we expect people to be like walking around, maybe crossing at the intersection, it's better to have people making those maneuvers at a slightly slower speed. So narrowing an intersection provides a little more space for pedestrians to hang at before crossing. But ultimately, it's just about taking an intersection that might be a little hairy to cross, and 24 feet is not quite enough to have a meaningful by having to kind of maneuver in and out of the chicane. Traffic circles. So these are typically used on like really big intersections. Turning movements. So if we have like things like school buses, delivery vehicle time, and ultimately destroyed. So you have to have a pretty large intersection before a traffic circle is going to be a Hopedale. you don't have any intersections quite large enough for those. We did notice the intersection of Hopedale and looks like Wales Drive that did sort of surpass our usual threshold for getting bulb outs. So we've proposed a set there. But in addition to that, there is some design guidelines that we used to produce this design. We went out there pretty recently and just check out the hills, the grades, and all that. And we think we've placed these close enough that people will slow down for them and not have time to speed back up before they get to the next one, but not so close that we're seeing diminishing returns, having you go over too many of these as you traverse the road. So I like to pause here and just take any questions about the design, if we have any from the crowd. And if not, that is also totally fine.
Great. I'm so excited.
That's great to hear. Yeah, that really is the hope. We just want everyone to be able to feel safe as they're existing in their neighborhood where they live. That's a pretty big quality of life.
One question I actually do
Sure.
is about this intersection.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of that road.
It might be Flora Maxwell.
Maxwell's here.
Yeah.
This was this is,
Oh, nice.
but mostly it's a very Hopedale to that road and then out to Wallace and Tampa is a very favored cut through to get to the interstate and avoid traffic. And that in particular intersection right there is actually quite a blind turn because people have their shrubbery and everything.
Okay.
I don't know what kind of solution, if any, maybe the cushions would help. I'm sure it would because it would slow down the traffic broadly. Mostly I just thought I would mention it because I know driving on the everyday as is a little tricky.
Yeah, that's good to know for sure. We hope that speed cushions make roads a slightly less enticing like cut through. We don't try to divert traffic by doing these, but it is observed by research that it does happen sometimes, and especially if there's an arterial road that was intended for that volume to be there. It stands to reason that some traffic would go down. If that spot is troublesome for you and you remember it enough to tell me about it.
Yes.
So presumably it's not ideal the intersection a bit, and the idea is that you're
stop sign there, which does. I don't think I've ever seen an accident there or something. Mostly people they have to pull up much further for visibility to turn left on it.
Yeah, it is kind of.
Yeah, that's it. Humber Drive.
Yeah, so when you have, we can see how wide those radii are.
Sure.
That forces the stop line to be, upwards of 40, 50 feet back.
And it's pretty back. So.
Yeah. When we do bulb outs, that typically will come forward. Yeah.
And I think, it doesn't have to be perfect for it because, like I said, I'm not sure I've ever seen an accident there. Lower speed would make it even safer. But I just thought I'd mention it.
Sure.
Other thought that I have.
Yeah, well, we'll take a look and probably consult some of our partners, but I don't see a reason why we couldn't do bulb outs there. It didn't strike us as the most the intersection most ripe for it because it's not that far away, but that doesn't mean it's not still a good idea.
Sure.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's great feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Biggest a lot of traffic.
Humber is, it's also straight, which I think makes people go, it's also a big hill.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting. I wonder.
Yeah, it's not
None of,
on.
yeah, I was going to say none of those have applied for it. The white and the gray are getting mixed up here. I can't really see which one is which, but
it's not on there, so
yeah.
no application. It's no.
Yeah. Well, it's worth mentioning that the application.
Yeah, I think so. I think
There are a lot of Humber.
Yeah, that would be the hope.
Pedestrians, because you can see everyone who's coming,
Mhm.
and so you can just, anyway, not to derail us entirely.
Oh no, I mean we should be okay on time at the very least. Well, any more talk on the concept?
I think it looks like.
Great. Well, that's great to hear. So this is kind of the timeline, and this is sort of the next steps section of the meeting. Sort of like I was alluding to before, we always do one neighborhood meeting to just sort of present the project, take any feedback that may affect our design as we finalize the plans. There is a site that we'll do. We'll produce like kind of construction quality plans, a little more detail. Where exactly are these cushions going? What do they look like? There is an optional second neighborhood meeting. I think we will go ahead and do that just because it's a pretty low attendance work. But after that, we'll move on to the ballot process where we send postcards in the mail. Everyone who lives on Hopedale will get a code and vote online, and the project will be built if 66% of people who do vote yes. So it's not 66% of everyone, it's just those interested enough to cast a ballot. Yes.
You have to live on the street.
Yeah, that's correct. And I'll clarify a little bit. We generate this list by taking like Metro's public records, parcel viewer. So whoever like owns the properties there get mail sent to whatever address is like listed. And then NDOT will order materials and install the project. Not super soon. They've got a pretty big backlog right now, like definitely. Yeah, there's yeah, exactly. NDOT is aware of the backlog, and they're pulling a few different levers to try to speed that up. The good news is they think they've got a second contractor on board to start cranking these out. Yeah, so we're hoping that'll be a big relief. But yeah, it's sort of like the problem started with COVID, where they had trouble getting materials, but it only got worse as we kept wanting to design more of these projects, but those rates were just out of balance. Yeah, I know. I mean, the good news is they're not going away because of the delay, but they aren't. We just need to work through them and get them installed. So we're going to cover the sort of nitty-gritty details of the balloting in the second meeting. We don't need to spend a ton of time here, like going over every bit. But yeah, like we said, it's the residents of Hopedale that are voting on this because it's the street they live on. So we send it to them, and that's it. Here to take any questions we have. Or wrap up, just whatever y'all want.
When you say 85% speed,
yes,
85% of the cars going through there are going on an average that speed.
Yeah, so the 85th percentile works the same way medians do. So a median, like half people are going slower, half are going faster. 85th, 85 are going slower, 15% are going faster. That's a metric that traffic engineers use because it's sort of like safer than the median. You wouldn't want like half of people going faster than a road's designed for, but it isn't dragged way up or down by outliers. Like say a mailman was going 5 miles an hour. That's not going to affect the 85th percentile. And anything else?
From here, it's a like 18 to 24 month kind of thing to push into the ground. Maybe a little more right now.
I really hope it's not 18 to 24 months. Yeah, that would be like the most extreme version of our like conservative estimate.
Okay. And of the streets that are approved for traffic calming and they go to the online ballot, what percentage of those?
Oh, the vast majority, yeah. Typically, people ask for this program because they observe speeding and are unhappy about it. And that's the pile of 500. We're only selecting the absolute worst ones.
Yeah.
So we find that most people are supportive of these projects.
And if renters live in the house, they don't have a vote?
No, their landlord will get the mail. Okay. If anyone is interested, we definitely encourage them to sort of reach out and encourage their landlord to like look for the vote, be active that way. Yeah, it's definitely kind of a clunky system, but we try to work with the data we have, and unfortunately don't have too many options on that front. Cool. Well, once again, really appreciate you offering this space. Thank you for organizing.
It was easy.
Councilman Nash knows this, but if you ever have anything in this area, we're very happy to use our space. Funnily enough, Wednesday, right?
Yes.
Wednesday nights work very well for us.
Awesome.
For these kinds of things. So anyone in the vicinity, or not, but most relatively.
It's hard to find public space, and some churches are a little more difficult sometimes to get someone to come out.
Great. Well, I will wrap up the meeting. We'll quit recording here.